Welcome back to another episode of the UnTalk Podcast. I am your host, Lamir T, and we have my little friend joining me today.
Oh, okay, okay.
Since we're doing this live, you can't really combat that unless you just got a crack against me or something like that.
I'll save those for later.
Okay, we'll go with that. But no, I do appreciate it. We have Marc Thomas joining us today. And obviously and clearly, I've known you for quite some time and on many different levels. But I always like to start off by just allowing you to tell the people who you are, what you do, how you do, why are you even here before we kind of dive into things.
My name is Marc Thomas. I am from Columbus, Ohio, born and bred, Columbus Public Schools.
All right now.
Yeah, Fort Hays graduate. And then I spent an extra year at Whitehall Yearling in high school. So I technically have 2 senior years. But I walked across the stage, and that's all that matters.
There you go. There you go.
I've been in the arts pretty much all my life. Really got the bug at second grade. My second grade teacher, we were all doing, remember how we used to color the flag on the manila paper?
Mm-hmm.
And so she had everybody hold it up and held mine up, and everybody laughed at it. I was crushed.
Oh, wow.
So then literally like from that day on, it's kind of just ever since then. Sometimes out of tragedy, good things come from that.
Yeah.
So a lot of my artistic things came from, negative experiences. And there's always like a story behind it or a little bit extra behind it of the why versus, yes, I like art. There's always a story behind it. And so, I went to Fort Hays and I got some sound training, foundational training, which is key because when I talk to a lot of the young artists, they'll ask me their opinions and stuff. And the first thing I look for is foundation. Anything that you're skilled in or anything that you've been taught, they drew it in that foundation. That's what immediately is going to jump out at you. So some of the things that my teachers have told me, I end up telling them. So, it's kind of like paying it forward. And I was telling them, hey, get that foundation down. You'll never, ever regret it because 20 years down the line, you'll be doing the same thing with somebody else. Like, hey, man, what do you think about this? Got some great work. I need you to work on X, Y, and Z. And all goes back down to foundation.
So let's untalk a little bit of what you just talked about and starting with the experience with dealing with your teacher in the classroom and holding up the artwork. I think it's pretty ironic, if you want to call it that you could take, such a tragedy, such a dark moment at that time in your life and use it to make beauty. Does that still drive you to this day? Are you actually setting out to make art or to make beauty or is it more therapeutic or all the above?
It was actually all the above because, the home life at the time was when a lot of the abuse and stuff started because I'm a survivor of child abuse. So for somebody going through any sort of abuse, there's always certain escapes that you want to escape to. So mine just happened to kind of be the arts. And so from the reactions from that, I was able to get affirmations and kudos, things that I wasn't getting, in home life. And so for me, I was able to kind of escape, through that. And so that kind of kept me like, okay, I have something that's mine that I just do it on my own. I'm not getting beat. And so that was able to kind of help me stay even keel. And which today, I always have sometimes the issues with people saying, well, I grew up like this. This is why I'm so angry or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's not always the case because my case was probably as worse as yours, was even worse. And I was able to kind of find some sort of outlet. In which now as adults, you hear people say all the time, find an outlet, find something to counterbalance those things that if you're going through something or if you just do one thing, you have to have something to counterbalance. Because I believe everybody has some sort of artistic gift. It doesn't have to be like on a grand scan level, it could be drawing stick figures. But just to have that outlet, whether it's dancing, whether it's fitness, whether it's art, just something that can kind of offset your daily life. Like you see these folks that when they hit 70, all of a sudden they start painting and doing those other things because they've kind of gotten away from it.
Is that what is being said or what people mean by when you're pouring your heart and your soul into your work? based on your experiences as a young child and the abuse. And that's when you got into artwork, where you literally pouring your heart and your soul into what you were doing then?
Not all artists per se, because there are artists that's all they do is deep rooted, like deep sentimental, make you a critical thinking type of artwork. Others is just the beauty of just being able to do art, kind of just escape from it. So like my subject matter is not artwork that has to do with what I went through. It's all about happy art per se. So I just did one, my uncle doing the fish fry, somebody riding their bikes, things like that. So you don't get stuck in one way. And everybody can relate to it. So if you're looking at a piece of my artwork, I want you to be able to be like, oh man, that reminds me of X, Y, and Z. Or man, I remember I used to ride my bikes too like that. And those are things that I want people to kind of be able to kind of get away from it. That way I don't have to explain it to you because you're the person that's looking at the art. It's your interpretation of whatever it is that you see. Now, 9 times out of 10, what you see and what you might comment on is the reaction that I usually get. This is exactly what I want, because I want you to experience the story without me really having to tell you.
Sure.
It's kind of like going into a store. You want to go in there and be like, you know what? I have my eye on a certain thing. I know when I see it, that's what I'm get. Then all of a sudden, somebody's in there telling you about, oh, it's made out of this, it's made out of that. Get this color comes in this color. And you're like, man, can I just experience it for myself?
Sure.
I know when I see it.
Sure.
So it's the same thing with art.
So when did you, or are you still in the process of mending from the childhood to the abuse to currently? Is it a forever process, or have you gotten to a point where you're better in life? And how did you go from the hurt to the happy, or is it just still a work in progress?
For me, I was always trying to figure out the why on my own. And we know when we try to do things on our own, it doesn't always get the reasoning and the
Sure.
resolution behind it. So one day we were at church and my pastor did an altar call. He was like, kind of just walking by, and he's like, childhood, let it go. And this huge rush of release, I was able to release a whole lot of stuff. And immediately I went over to the old house where I experienced a lot of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I went there, stood in front of the house, and I turned around and I never looked back, and was kind of like just reflected. And I wrote this big old testimonial, and what came out of that testimonial was some of my behaviors. People were like, okay, yeah, exactly, that's exactly how you were acting. I'm calling people like, man, was that this? Was that X, Y, and Z? It was like, yeah, you didn't know that? But also it was a release for other men. Because as men, we didn't talk about stuff. We don't, oh man, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. But because I think you go from wounds to scars and the residue, and then flashbacks. Residue, it's always a process, but residue doesn't pop up always. So like I could be watching something and I can immediately, man, I can relate to that guy right there, because I know how it feels when watching something the other day, and the guy, he was on America's Got Talent, he was dancing, his family didn't really support him in the arts, and nobody showed up. And so they called his mom. At first, nobody really picked up. I was like, oh man, I know that feeling. But eventually, she picked up the phone and things like that. So those moments like that, I'm like, wow, man, I can definitely relate. And so just being able to, just abuse survivors, period. It's not even so much a specific type of abuse, but it's always going to be a little bit of triggers and residue. But my thing is always get to the root, and understanding that that's where you get to, and being able to recognize that, like whether it's a tone of voice, because I thought if a certain tone of voice will shut me down, and I'll get quiet or whatever. It's not the person's fault. It's just that, hey, these are things that happened to me in my past that make me feel a certain way. Even through the arts has been wonderful, because even though I grew up in a household of divorce and dysfunction, the arts has allowed me to be able to teach people and actually kind of bring them together. And that was just a setup for me to be able to experience and get those things on my own, like, getting married and going through that whole process, and being able to have somebody that loves me and affirms me and things like that. So it's kind of like, full circle. God uses our gifts to kind of mend our own hearts, but also being able to mend other people's hearts. with my other, which ties into the Strokes for Life art. And that's all about just doing artwork for individuals that are battling some sort of difficult, life diagnosis. And we live in a day and age where nobody does those wonderful things for people just because they want to do them. And so when I give people stuff, they're like, "Wow, you did this for me." It's like, yeah, I heard about your situation. I just wanted to bless you with this. You don't want nothing in return? No. So it was September 2018. I was standing in front of the counter and told my wife, I said, "Hey, I want to paint for somebody that's going through something." "What do you mean?" "I just want to sit there. I just want to paint." She's like, "Oh, okay." So let's come up with a name. And Strokes kept, kept coming up. I was like, Strokes for Life. And so my very first patient was a lady that was battling breast cancer, and we literally went to James Cancer and sat there with her, painted the whole time she was going through her therapy, which people don't understand what they go through. People don't understand what the process of abuse or process of death, what they go through. So kind of being able to sit there and that allowed them to kind of escape to see my process. And so just the reaction from the doctors stuff coming in there, and I'm a firm believer the arts is a great therapeutic tool in any endeavor. And so it kind of just, went from there. And then with that, it allows you to go into different arenas, different people's houses and things like that. And whether they're white, they're black, they're foreign, whatever, because everybody can relate to those things. Like, wow, this individual did something nice for me. And that becomes a bridge. So for whatever they had in their thought process, like, wow, man, this person did a picture of my mother who was passed away. I really appreciate that. Not when they're turning no cameras, no, hey, let me do X, Y, and Z, but genuine. Because, when you've been through stuff, you can easily pick up on somebody's really being genuine, or they just kind of capitalize off that. Like, okay, yeah, we're gonna use it. Tell me more about this again. Like, nope. Mm-mm. So it's all intertwined, and now you're starting to see the arts being a focus for so many different things now. And we've been telling them for years, like, don't cut the arts out of schools. They need that. And out of these individuals are adults and they need all that extra help and stuff. Like, oh, let's try some, art therapy or paint this out, and let's talk about it, because it all ties in together. The arts is so fundamental. I'm always pushing people. My wife can't draw a stick figure. I always encourage her to, hey, create some beads or something, create a necklace. We live right down from Hobby Lobby. Like, come on, let's go get something. Nice. Because I love my gift and I want to be able to inspire somebody else to be able to do the same thing. So it all ties in together. It's all, full circle. It's just been a true blessing, because one thing has opened up so many doors that I personally didn't believe. Because when you've been through stuff, abuse and stuff like that, your belief in yourself and what you're worth is a lot of times non-existent. Somebody has to continue to hound you, like, oh, you don't make it, or whatever. They just saying that they're not gonna buy that and they're not gonna participate. And then once you stop saying it and start believing, then those doors open, and not so much focus on the latter end of it, but focus on just, focus on your gift. I've ever had the ability to speak inside of a prison. Yeah, I was like, wow, the guy called me up from prison. I was like, did my sister do something or something? No. He told me about the program, went out there, and man, it was amazing. Because even in that situation, you were able to kind of dispel your own little myths about people in prison and incarceration, just to be able to sit there and pour into them. And they were so happy for people to come in there and actually pour into them. I contact a couple of my buddies that have been in incarceration before. I said, man, these are my thoughts. It was like, dude, they called you there to talk for your art, talk about the art, and everything else will work out. And it did. And to this day, I want to go back, but with the COVID and stuff, they put in a halt on just about any outside visitors and stuff coming in there.
So we're on the UnTalk podcast right now with Marc Thomas. I want to try to go back and untalk some of those things. When you talk about the arts and the foundation of being an artist, what do you think are the fundamentals? What is the foundation that the arts have taught you that either children are missing out by not participating in schools, or higher ups are not understanding the impact when you cut funding and you cut program to schools, in particular the inner city schools, when it comes to art?
Well, I know for me, especially, it's very, very critical because as youth, we want to do creative stuff.
Mhm.
That's just like, a part of life. Like the best thing that I experienced was when I went to Fort Hayes. Their ninth grade year, they make you do an arts foundation course. So every 9 weeks, you do a different arts. One semester was acting and people that work on the stage and stuff like that. Another one was dancing, which I actually learned how to dance. Another one was art, and another one was choir. So then your sophomore year, you were able to be like, okay, I like X, Y, and Z, so I'm not going to worry about the rest of those. But when you take that away, what else do you have? Because not everybody's an athlete. Not
Right.
everybody is the kind of like the brainiac. And for kids to be able to experience, okay, well, you know, John and Brad are great at the art, but I'm not. So we had a mixture of the kids that were the book smarts per se, and they were able to learn a craft and vice versa. And so they kind of began to kind of offset when you have that group of people together. And foundation wise, I guess it depends on all of my mentors. They have been cut and dry. No chaser.
Mm.
Just like, hey, you need to work on X, Y, and Z. That's nice. We need to work on X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with art, same thing with dance, even fitness. They all were pretty much cut and dry. And I think when you get older, just like with you being in, the audio visual stuff like that,
Mhm.
you can talk to somebody or see a video and be like, they're missing X, Y, and Z. They're missing this foundation component. And it's up to them to listen, and it's up to us to kind of offer a olive branch.
Mhm.
Like there was an artist, Benjamin Crumpler. He had, he's my art mentor. He's actually on my bio. He stopped me one day. He's like, hey man, I don't want to be a successful black person that made it and not help somebody else up that has that gift. And he's mentored me. He still checks on me to this day. He'll be like, hey man, great composition. So the people that understand foundation, they know what that means. I
Mhm.
go, okay, oh man, that's great. Subject matter or artistic names that artists understand and know about. And so just having those kind of like that reassurance. Composition, spacing, almost literally like the same thing that you go through, like lighting and making sure your set is up the correct way, making sure you don't have too many dark colors on one side or this side or that side. But they have to get a good foundation. And usually you're not really going to get the hardcore foundation until you get to your AP classes, which are junior, senior year.
Mhm.
In which I wish they had them earlier, because sometimes you spend 16, 17 years thinking you have this phenomenal craft, and then you get somebody telling you, yeah, it's nice, but now I need you to work on X, Y, and Z. They got a choice of I can listen to social media who's telling me I'm already great, or I can listen to an actual legitimate person who's been in the game for a long time. Which one am I going to listen to? So I'm a proponent of getting those. If your kid has a gift, getting them some sound teaching. And I always tell the parents, like, if the kid has an actual gift, they can actually draw. Not, oh, look at what little Keisha drew. Like some legitimate skills for their skill set. Get them a hardback sketchbook and keep it. Do not throw them away, because a year later they can go back out. They can look at it and be like, oh wow, I've really increased. I still have my portfolio from high school that I still have out in the garage. And I was looking at it the other day. I was like, wow, look at this. So you can kind of see your progress.
Mhm.
Even like now, like I'll sketch something out. My wife, if she sees a sketch, she don't throw it away. She just
Mhm.
puts it in a little box,
Mhm.
because I can still go back to it. It might be a year later, like, man, where's that paper at that I drew the guy with the hat on and he had a pair of headphones on with a Steelers jersey? I want to draw that now. And I can go back to that. And just keeping a catalog of things that you're doing, but also the individuality, that is crucial,
Mhm.
because we live in a day and age where everything is carbon copy.
Right.
Like, well, I've seen somebody draw a painting of somebody famous that passed away. 1,000 artists are going to do the same thing. But what is your style? What is that makes yours yours? So like, I can't be like, well, I've seen 100 artists like doing the same exact thing that you're doing. What's going to set you apart? Just like my mentor said, get you a name for your artwork, come up with some fancy way of how to explain it, because you're going to need that. They're always going to ask that. Well, what is your style? Well, it's urban abstract expressionism inspired by the Harlem Renaissance era. And usually people who study those eras, they can kind of, yeah, this kind of does remind me of X, Y, and Z. You got to have those key elements. And the kid has to kind of be able to ask around and just get involved. Especially with the age of social media, you can actually reach out and they have videos and stuff like that. But the kids have to be able to do work too. And the parents kind of have to, kind of guide them like, hey, I found these videos on how to draw hands and eyes, which is anybody that's an artist that's listening that understand the hands, eyes are one of the hardest things to practice. You got to practice. Progression for artists was interesting because we all started doing the same thing. We started out tracing, and then we graduate to the comic book characters.
Okay.
Then we graduate to drawing graffiti type letters. Anybody you went to school with that was an artist, all of us did the same exact thing.
Okay.
You get into our class, start venturing around with different painting, doing some watercolor stuff. Until you kind of begin to develop your own style. It's like a rites of passage. You're like, oh, okay, you're at that comic book stage. And then usually you'll come across something where, like, if you were an artist and you laid out 12 paintings and they were all different, I could look at your portfolio and be like, that's your style right there. Why aren't you doing that? Because somebody did that for me. Like, why aren't you doing that? You think that because everybody else is doing this, that's not your style. That's doing what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, we're on the UnTalk podcast with Marc Thomas.
What's up?
Yeah, we're talking all things about artwork and getting ready to dive a little bit more into fitness and things in general. But I do want to untalk some of the things that you've been discussing, and one in particular is when you talk about a mentor. How important is it to have a mentor? How do you navigate through the waters of business or art without a mentor? Is having a mentor the reason why you succeed? Is not having one the reason why people fail? What's even the purpose of getting a mentor?
Mentors are extremely important. Number one, majority of people that have mentors, they're intimidated by their mentors. And I still am to this day because they know so much knowledge and you want to kind of make them proud. Whether I have a dance mentor in Chicago Stepping, like I'm doing the videos, so kind of like, okay, I see you, doing good, and you're like, yes, I made my mentor proud. They're not there to kind of be your yes person. They're like, okay, well that's good. Now I need you to work on X, Y, and Z. So the next time I see you, I need you to work on, let's say, hands. So then the next time I see them, I'm like, yes, I've been working on hands. Check me out. I got this. But you have to, because some of the stuff that they say, you don't listen until it's later on. Like, oh man, you're gonna do X. You're gonna have a gallery, blah blah blah. You're gonna do this show or that show, and then all of a sudden, 12 years down the line, you're like, wow, okay, they were right. And then that's what we would go back to them, like, man, you were exactly right. I see exactly what you were saying all along. And it's kind of like full circles, tough love. Mentors are like tough love. They don't take your credit. Like, oh man, I'm the one that kind of, oh God, they're kind of like behind the scenes. Almost like how teachers are, like the graduation time. They know it wasn't just them. They know they were a part of it. They're proud and they can reach out and be like, hey, I'm proud of you, whatever. But when you have those good mentors, you're always going to talk about them to the point where somebody's like, oh, Lemire, that's who Mrs. Johnson was. I've always heard you talk about her. I finally get to meet her. But it's very crucial. But then also, they give you leeway for you to develop on your own because they don't want you to be like them. They want you to be the best person of you. So if they give you those directions, then they know you're going to venture out and do some research, on your own. Even to this day, I'm always still researching stuff. I might be like, okay, well, I'm doing a subject matter on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to do a series. So I'll do research. I'll look up what the logo means, the exact color, certain things that identify that with the Steelers other than the obvious. So to somebody that's actually studies that and lives it and breathes it, they'll be able to look at it and be like, yes, that person got it right. That person got the right gold. It's not canary yellow. It's not the golden yellow. It's a specific type of yellow. Those small things And then with having a mentor, you're able to learn how to go out and ask questions. Like I did the piece behind me is you can see it, but a Cuban guitarist. And I have a friend, she's Cuban. So before I even posted the picture, I said, look, I did a Cuban piece. I studied some of the colors of that are popular in the country. What do you think before I put this out there? I just want to make sure I got it right. And she looked at it, she's like, oh my gosh, you got it, spot on. And those are the things that as an artist, if you're going to paint certain things, you got to do your research. Same thing with the HBCU band. I've never been in a band, so I contacted some people that have been in HBCU. What three things? Like it was like the helmet coming over the eyes, the gloves, and obviously, some of the position. I was like, okay, same thing. You got to do your research. You just can't be out there just guesstimating because somebody's gonna call you out. That's not right.
Mm-hmm. And for those who are wondering what a HBCU is, it's a historically Black college or university. And we're on the UnTalk podcast with Marc Thomas. So let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about fitness. You touched on it earlier, but when you're a male, and in particular a Black male in the inner city, okay, it's one thing for you to be an artist, but then now when you're an artist and you're into fitness, is there a stereotype or do you feel people feel like you have to be a certain kind of way? Most people think that you can't be a heterosexual male, you've got to be homosexual, if you're into the arts or somehow you're soft or something like that. How did that affect you growing up, or were you just so laser focused that you never even considered it?
I mean, there were talks because back then it's not like it is now. The arts and being able to express, especially as Black men, is different now than what it was before then. People kind of, are you like, nah?
Sure.
And so being a heterosexual male, being in the arts is actually inspiring to some of the younger people that may be watching that are heterosexual. Because they can be like, you know what, this dude got a wife, he do his thing, he manly, I can do the same thing. And so those kind of stigmas kind of go out the window. But one thing with the arts, man, is so inclusive to everybody that it doesn't even really matter. Because, for instance, at Fort Hays, we didn't have any sports.
Right.
And it was pretty much an arts-dominated school. So everybody was literally just one unit. So whether you were gay, whether you were Black, whether you were Hispanic, or whatever. So that's why when you look at the arts, it's so inclusive to a little bit of representation of everybody. But I can remember being in a hip hop group, and that's one of the things we enjoyed, the fact that we were all heterosexual males and doing our thing and being positive in the community, because other people needed to see that. Because if you're not sure, like, man, I want to be a dancer, change the word, but I love hip hop dancer. Hip hop dancer sounds better than saying I'm a dancer. Right. Because basically back then, like, what kind of dancer are you? No, I don't wear tights. I wear the shell toes and the cargo pants, we can get it in. Right. But yeah, it's a different thing now. Like, well, it doesn't matter, because as long as you're out there, showcasing your craft and your gift, then, I'm all for it. Especially because there's so many things that are, especially Black men and Black youth, they get knocked down on. Because you don't want to knock somebody down just because they may or may not be a certain way. That's not taken away from their gift. But on the flip side, I like being able that positive image of them knowing men that are in these arenas that are how they are.
And let's talk a little bit about fitness. I think that it's pretty commonplace for most people to think that getting in shape is about weight training and just lifting weights. Is that what's most important, or when do you get to a point where cardio becomes important? Is cardio more important? How do you figure out what's the appropriate balance? What age do you need to start thinking about that balance, whether you're just living life, whether you're an athlete? Let's untalk that a little bit.
Age, that's the factor right there.
Okay.
Because when we're in our 20s, man, we just want to be most yoked up dude walking down the block. Hey, man, what's really bitch, man?
Right.
What's your school time, man? We ate anything, we just lift the weights. So we didn't think about those, what we think about now, like, wow, man, how's my cholesterol? How's, it's time to get prostate exams, things like that. We didn't think about that when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you get older, it shifts from, man, I wonder if I could still do 315 to, I just want to be healthy.
Right.
So if you go into a store and you say, you know what, man, I want to be healthy, you're going to think about everything. What's in your cart, what you're drinking, things like that. Whereas I just want to be the strongest cat. I know some strong cats that probably couldn't run, 3 feet, but they can bench like 500-600 pounds, and their health numbers aren't the best. Everything, man, food, stress, a home life, all that comes into play. It's full circle because fitness and faith are a lot alike. You do all these different things. Ooh, let me try this. Let me try that. Let me be consistent for a week, but then all of a sudden fall off. You got to find something that's going to work goes back to the foundation level, which is food. Because think about it, we didn't have all these supplements when we were playing sports back in the 90s. I think we barely had Gatorade.
Right.
And I thought that was pretty much it. So, we ate food. And now everything is supplement based. Like, hey, take this supplement, it'll do all the tricks for you. So we've gotten away from some of the foundation stuff. And then when we go see our doctors, the doctor's saying, okay, well, I need you to eat more fruits and vegetables. I need you to cut out your salt. It's all foundational stuff. Growing up with no money, the food we ate, probably some of the most healthiest food.
Right.
We ate the beans. We ate the brown rice because, it lasted. That's a foundation that you go over to grandma's house. Yeah. That's the foundation stuff that we've kind of gotten away from. And as Black men, we really need to get our health in check because our mindset a lot of times is, well, I'm not 400 pounds or I'm not X, Y, and Z. And I blame TV for that because you see all these health shows that always get the 400 or 500 pound people. So if you keep showing people that and they're 100 pounds, they're not going to take it seriously. Well, I'm not 400 pounds, so I'm good. And we both lost friends at a young age that having heart attacks, things, preventable diseases, as I like to call it. Outside of that, it's different, but preventable stuff like high cholesterol, you can, lower your weight. Not an easy process because I've been in fitness all my life. I've never experienced and I know it's overweight and having health issues. So I can understand somebody's story only so far. And I can get them to a certain place, but then also, me not having experienced that, I've had to use a lot of empathy, like, okay, wow, even though I haven't experienced that, I can sympathize with this person because I hear the stories. But I still want to encourage them to do X, Y, and Z because my program or my advice has helped this person that was dealing with some health issues. And I always make sure I say health issues because if you say, well, obesity issues, I automatically think 500-600 pound people, whereas blood pressure, silent killer, heart disease, things like that. And as we get older, we already know, like, man, I need to do this test, I need to do that test. And we begin to take it more seriously. Like, wow, man, I'm really counting my miles in. We're looking for people like, hey, man, I'm looking for a walking club, looking for a running club or a cycling club just to kind of keep myself, active and fit. Because when we get older, we got wives, we got families. We're looking at them like, okay, well, I want to be around. So I need to do what I'm going to do. And then it's a trickle down effect because if you're living that example, they're going to be inspired by it. Because like I said, man, it's extremely important that people go to sort of thing. I just want to be healthy. That should be a band. I just want to be healthy. It encompasses anything and everything. So if they're on blood pressure pills, and I want to be healthy, I'm going to continue to take my blood pressure pills until the doctor begins to kind of wean me off. Whether it's going from 2 pills to 1 pill. Like, wow, I can touch my toes. I don't wheeze when I cough. I'm no longer on my CPAP machine. Those small little things that we weren't taught as a kid, like count those victories. So let's say you didn't lose any weight, but your doctor took you off of 4 your medications. People don't think that that's a victory, but it is. It's way more of a victory than somebody being able to bench 215 pounds. You have to count all of that. because in the end, all those things are going to come like, well, what happened? Well, this person had, hypertension and high blood pressure. They didn't get checked, but they look so much in shape. It's a myth. Just like with running, we raced before. I still want to pay back for that race on the homestead.
I think you may win now.
Right. Yeah. But running endurance does not have a look. Like I do half marathon, 5Ks, and cycling. You look at some of these people physically, you're like, man, they ain't gonna be able to do nothing. They run a lot. They run in circles around me. Endurance health is way different than somebody being, muscular and things like that. Like when you hear the argument of who are the most fittest people, it's never the football players. It's never the basketball players. It's always like the swimmers, soccer players, and like boxers, because their condition is just like bar none. But when you look at the physics, you're like, this little person, they can't do nothing, until you go running with them. You're like, man, slow down. But you got to take control of your health. I mean, it's serious. We're dying off because for those that are listening that are single, you meet somebody in our age bracket, they ain't just looking at you, they're looking at your health too. Like, okay, is this person gonna be around? This person, they done called 6 times on the 2 dates I've been with them. What's going on with them?
Right.
That health inventory, So our mindset begins to change versus, somebody that's younger.
Those who are joining, we're on the UnTalk podcast with Marc Thomas. We've been talking art, we've been talking fitness and wellness as a whole. So before we get you off, we'll let you have the opportunity to shout out anything that you want to shout out, whether it's pages, whether it's websites, whether it's links. We'll let you do so at this time. Anything you want the people to shout out to the people or contact you or find you at or through?
Yes, they can contact me at Marc Thomas on Facebook. I have 2 art pages. One of them is Art of Marc Thomas. The other one is Strokes for Life Art. And then also with the fitness thing, if you want, I believe in when you have a gift, just like you have a gift, it's important for you to be able to give some of the gift away, and not be looking at people like, okay, well, how much are you going to pay me? So if you have any general nutrition questions, whatever, I can give you a good blueprint to start with. I tell people all the time that a good foundation to get you started with, and then once you go from that level, I can even direct you to somebody else, because it's important. Like if you come like, hey man, I'm dying, but doctor said X, Y, and Z. What do I need to do? And I can give you those basic foundation steps, which I can run real quick. Week 1, just cut out salt. Week 2, just cut out sugar. Week 3, don't eat out, cook at home. 4, cut out the caffeine and alcohol. And then for 10 days, you do it on your own. You do all those things all together on your own. Because usually we're told, okay, well, we need you to fast doing X, Y, and Z. But the onus is on you. So those foundation things will make a huge difference. And then also Strokes for Life Art on Facebook and Instagram, Art of Marc Thomas on Facebook and Instagram. You guys can follow me there. Feel free to inbox and say, hey, I heard you on the UnTalk show. Can you give me some ideas to get started with on my health and fitness journey?
And thank you, Marc Thomas, for joining us on the UnTalk podcast.
I appreciate you, man. Friends since 1996.
way back.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, man.